The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL.
The Chargers made some gigantic plays late and they absolutely stole a win from the Eagles.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers.
The Chargers snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. This game was over 7 times in my mind before the final whistle blew. And even when things got so tough and it felt like there was no way the Chargers could come back, they go and beat, while, a struggling team, but the former Super Bowl champions, the reigning Super Bowl champions, a team that was desperate to get a big win, and the Chargers did what they had to do and made the clutch plays late in this game to finish them off.
Just a massive statement win for the Chargers. Outside of the Denver Broncos victory, they hadn't really had one of those big wins to really be able to kind of test and show which version or who this football team was. And I think tonight, there's no other way that you can say that they didn't make that statement tonight. This is a legitimate big-time win against a playoff caliber team, a team that is very much in the thick of it in the NFC. This is huge. This is massive. This is a win that can change the trajectory of the Chargers season, and I think, honestly, one of the signature wins of the Jim Harbaugh era.
Absolutely. I mean, ask him, right? Jim Harbaugh's putting it up there with the birth of his 7 children in his wedding day. So, I mean, yeah, you can tell how much it means to these guys, and they don't care how it happens, right? Like, to get that win, they're on top of the world, and they feel like they could go beat anybody. And I think the one big thing this game brings is the fact that the Chargers can hang with anybody, right? Like, this was a B game by the Chargers, obviously an A+ game by the Chargers defense, but like the Chargers didn't play a complete game and they still beat a good playoff team that has, the kind of metal to be able to come through in those big moments. But it was the Chargers who were able to do that, including Tony Jefferson, the man who's multi-time on this podcast, right? Multi-time guest for this show, a guy we've always advocated for, and a guy that just seems to come up so clutch at the end of these games and in big moments. Last week, you get the interception on the sideline after the tip by Dante Jackson. This week, it's the game-winning interception after David, where, the Chargers had a 3rd and 16 in overtime to potentially ice it. They don't get off the field. The Chargers get into a 4th and 4 situation where it's the game on the line and you can win it right there. They're not even trying to kick the field goal, and then you give it to him, right? And I'm like, I don't think he crossed the line. I thought it was BS from, where I was sitting. It looked like he definitely moved but didn't cross it, and then they went, so they had to call something. It was over in my mind. And so for Cam Hart specifically, we'll talk more about him having probably his best game ever, but for the Chargers to be able to make that big play with everything going against them, and for Tony Jefferson to have the vet wherewithal to get his hands on that ball and find a way to stay in bounds, that is just such a huge win for this team who won this game on the back of their defense.
Overcoming the adversity that they kind of set up from themselves. Like the 3rd and 16, I was wanting to rip my hair out. Like those situations, you absolutely cannot allow that. Those are big advantage situations where your pass rush has to get home, and you cannot allow those type of conversions. Those lose you games right then and there. And then to get an offsides penalty on a 4th and 4 is just soul crushing. I thought it was over. I mean, that was a crippling mistake right there. I was like, oh, that's it. They're going to win. They're going to go score this touchdown. That was it. The Chargers can't overcome this mistake. That was one too many. But it wasn't. They did overcome it. Wow, what a play for them to be able to tip that ball and get that interception. Tony Jefferson, just an absolutely incredible player. 4 interceptions in the year of our Lord 2025 for the great Tony Jefferson, a guy who just knows where to be, just super intelligent, and you see it on the football field. The guy just makes plays every time he's on the field, and this is another one for his highlight reel.
Yeah, man, you gotta love Tony Jefferson. Just truly trying to get everything he can out of his playoff or playing career after hanging him up. But like, yeah, again, like after the fake tush push Saquon Barkley touchdown, I thought this game was over. Then the Eagles go back up by 3 after you end up tying it, and then I thought the game was over. Then the Chargers lead a game-tying drive. Like there was just so many times in this game where I thought the Chargers weren't going to be able to come back, and we'll talk about the issues with their offense, but like. Drive after drive, field goal drive after field goal drive, and shout out to Cam Dicker, who you just have all the faith in the world. He's
cash money, baby,
and drill a 54-yard field goal. We'll talk more about him being perfect today, but like so many times I thought this one was over, and I think that's where you see the difference in this team really playing through the bitter end. And like you don't have that play if you're letting all of the scar tissue from years past into your head in those big moments. You don't have the play you have at the end there to finish that game off, and I think that is where you see the difference and the one kind of thing that gives you hope in this brutal final 4-game stretch that the Chargers can do what they need to do to go get into the playoffs, right? Because that's what it's going to take. But we have to take a moment to talk about Cam Hart, who just had, maybe the game of his career. Like it wasn't perfect, but man, time after time, this dude was just making big play after big play, and it ends up making the biggest play in the biggest moment in overtime.
Cam Hart, a guy that the talent was never a question. Whenever he got on the field, it just seems like this guy had it. I mean, he has the length, he has the size, the speed. He has everything that you want from a corner. And he was drafted in the 5th round. And, man, this was one of his flower blossoming games here. Just sticky in coverage, made a huge interception, and then was in the right place in the right time with a unbelievably athletic play for him to contort his body, get his hand on that football, tip it up. And when that happens on defense, good things happen. And of course, the opportunistic one, Tony Jefferson was right there to cash in. But that doesn't happen if Cam Hart isn't in the right place and doesn't have that presence of mind to be able to make that play. Unbelievable from him. And also want to shout out Dante Jackson too. I mean, another fantastic game, another interception from him. A guy, all he does is just get interceptions. Joe Ortiz, my hat's off to you, man. It's unbelievable what you've been able to do, both in free agency and in the draft, being able to get guys that can contribute and make plays in this secondary. They were fantastic tonight.
Yeah, man, it's funny because, you're kind of halfway through the season. You're like, I don't know if Dante Jackson's getting, to those big numbers he's had. And all of a sudden you turn around and he has 4 picks, right? Like, It's just like it happened quickly. And this time, a great break on the football to pick off Jalen Hurts in a pivotal moment there, one of the 4 times that intercepted Hurts in this game. But that's the crazy thing about Cam Hart, man, is like that last play won them the game. But like he had a couple, like almost, he had at least one almost just as impressive plays that probably saved the game for the Chargers on a 2nd and 11 on the game, go-ahead field goal drive by the Eagles. He makes a perfect play. Jalen Hurts, a perfect throw into the back of the end zone, drops it in the bucket. A.J. Brown has both of his hands on it, and you have Cam Hart staying calm, not interfering, and raking through his arm to break that pass up.
Beautiful.
The Chargers don't get a touchdown there. I hate to break it to you. Like, I don't think they go and score. I mean, they only got one all night, and it was the first drive of the game, right? So, if the Eagles go up by 7 there, it gives the game an entirely different complexion, especially with the Chargers being in obvious passing situations where we know how much they've struggled. But that was huge. The other part is he got his first career interception in this game, right? Opportunistic. Ball bounces off the hands of A.J. Brown, who is hearing footsteps. Cam Hart is there to set up 3 points. The Chargers won by 3 points. And when you have a game that comes down this close, there's so many moments you can pull from where it's like that game, like that moment, they don't have it unless they make that play. And that's what this game was about. The Chargers making the big plays they had to. And their quarterback, Justin Herbert, playing through a broken hand and being able to do what it takes to go win this game. If you want to put him down in the high stat games where he's getting losses, you better prop him up in the game where he finds a way to get it done, even if he didn't have the flashy stats.
NFL Sundays move fast, one big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more, and keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
I know it was a devastating loss in Los Angeles on Monday Night Football, and we're all concerned.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast.
What a devastating, emotional roller coaster ride in LA. The Eagles fall to the Chargers in overtime, 22-19. The Eagles have now lost 3 straight games. There are some legitimate long-term questions I think we need to start talking about. We need to start having some conversations about the relationship, the long-term future of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. And we'll get into that later on in the show. We'll talk about Nick Sirianni's role in this offense, the failures of today, especially the first 3 quarters. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts and how, simply put, he's regressing. But I will say, even though there are legitimate concerns about the quarterback, legitimate concerns about the head coach, you're an 8-5 football team that has lost 3 straight after winning a Super Bowl. That feels really bad, right? Doomsday scenario, you threw the ball away in overtime to the Chargers. An interception ends the game when you're marching down the field in Chargers territory, set up so many times in this football game to win, right? And every single time it felt like the kill shot was there. Instead of making the play to win it, like this core normally has been accustomed to doing since 2021, time after time, a penalty would negate the kill shot, or a dropped ball by A.J. Brown, or an inaccurate throw by Jalen Hurts, an interception, or a missed field goal by Jake Elliott. Time after time, this team again shot themselves in the foot like they've been doing all year. So you're probably listening to all this and saying, why the hell did you lead the show by saying this was a moral victory kind of game for the Eagles against the Chargers? It's because, think about it. All of that happened to this football team today. After losing 2 straight games, after dealing with all the drama that the Eagles have gone through this year, the track record they have in the past of collapsing down the stretch in a similar scenario in 2023, all of that happened. You had a nightmarish first half of football that felt like 2020, right? It felt like the end of 2023. Jalen Hurts, his level of play, that looked Carson Wentz 2020 level bad. He was absolutely rattled. And yet, despite all of this transpiring in one night, you still almost won this football game against a good playoff-bound Chargers football team. You still should have been the team, all of that being said, that won this football game. You should have been the team that overcame it all, that showed fight, that didn't give up. That could have been such an easy game to just roll over and die. If you were the Philadelphia Eagles, if you were this defense, you could have easily said, F this, we have been carrying this football team all year long. We are giving the offense the ball back over and over and over again, and they're doing nothing with it. But they never gave up. This defense had an all-time great performance tonight. 7 sacks on the day. I mean, Jordan Davis was unbelievable in this football game, 1.5 sacks. Jalix Hunt was unbelievable, 2.5 sacks. Byron Young gives you 1.5 sacks. Nakobe Dean looked like the best blitzing linebacker in football. Cooper DeJean was all over Ladd McConkey, making play after play in the middle of the field. Quinyon Mitchell had only been targeted once until the end of the football game. This defense refused to die and gave you a chance over and over again. And it sucks that that kind of elite defensive performance went to waste in the form of a loss. But to see the defense be able to do that, to see this offense even at the end of the football game, despite how bad Jalen Hurts was, all of the turnovers today. I mean, in one play, Jalen Hurts turned the ball over twice. He threw an interception, got the ball back after Will Shipley punched the ball out, and then Jalen Hurts fumbles the ball again. He had 4 interceptions and a fumble on the day. Despite that and all the penalties and all the drops, A.J. Brown drops the game-winning touchdown at the end of the game, dropped a pass over the middle of the field that at the end of the game that should have been a first down, that gave the Chargers the ball back in Eagles territory. This offense still fought. This offense still made a ton of plays at the end to put themselves in a position to win the game. And again, they need to figure out how to get that kill shot back. they have lost that ability over the last 3 games. They are making the mistake instead of the game-winning play over and over. But to see that fight, even from Jalen Hurts, like if that was Carson Wentz out there, he would have completely unraveled. Jalen had the worst performance I think he's had maybe of his career, certainly since the end of 2023. Even at the end of 2023, I don't know if he looked that rattled like he did in the first half. And yet, in overtime, 3rd and 16, he makes an unbelievable pass in traffic over the middle of the field to Devontae Smith to move the chains. Like, he did put the ball on the money to A.J. Brown, which should have been the go-ahead game-winning touchdown at the end of regulation, at the end of the 4th quarter. He did drive them down the field in overtime, down 22-19. Yes, he threw the ball away. He got too aggressive and got picked off to end it. But I don't know, like, to see them have that kind of fight, that kind of resolve, that kind of heart, the fact that they didn't roll over and die like they did in 2023 tells me this team still has life this year. That, yeah, maybe our expectations have to change. Maybe they're not going to win the Super Bowl. They're probably not going to go back-to-back in 2025, 2026. Maybe they're not going to get a top 2 seed. They are likely not going to. Maybe they're the 3 seed or maybe even the 4 seed. They might have to go on the road to get some playoff wins this year. But the fact that they likely will not collapse, I think, is a perspective that should make you feel good. And you'll probably roll your eyes at that considering the expectations of this football team and how many chances they've had to turn this thing around. They just don't have the answers. But I don't know. For me, it feels good to know that this team is not quitting on Nick Sirianni, that Jalen Hurts is not quitting, because if they completely collapsed again down the stretch this year, and they still could, they've lost 3 straight games, but seeing their fight today tells me they're not going to against the Raiders, the Commanders twice, and the Bills. Seeing that makes me feel some sort of comfort in a really miserable night, because if they collapsed 2 times in the last 3 years, I wouldn't know what to make of this football team, this core, with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. You might have to make significant change at the end of this year, or everybody next year will be on the hot seat 1 year after winning an all-time great Super Bowl. So for me, I don't know, like that's a positive. And in this year's NFL, you probably don't want to hear it after a loss, but in this year's NFL, with the way this defense is playing, like the best in football, or at least top 3 with Houston, Seattle, and Denver in there. Like, it's those 3 teams in Philadelphia at the top of the league, in my opinion, on defense. The way they're playing, the way the run game came alive tonight. I mean, Saquon Barkley, at the most opportune time, becomes 2024 Saquon Barkley again. 20 carries for 122 yards and a 52-yard touchdown in a huge spot late in the game. Averaged 6.1 yards a pop. If the defense can play like that, if the run game can get revived, and the passing game can just find a way to stop making mistakes, stop turning the ball over. I know they just lost 3 straight, and that was such a frustrating game, but they will still have a chance if they don't completely unravel. They could still do damage in the postseason. I'm not predicting they win a Super Bowl. I'm not even saying they're going to get back to the NFC Championship, but they still control their destiny over the Dallas Cowboys to win the division. They still control their destiny for the 3 seed over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who lost again on Sunday. So you probably will roll your eyes at that, and I totally understand. There are some real long-term questions that I have about this football team that I didn't have a few months ago, and that's a really crappy feeling after just winning a championship. It's very frustrating, this team, year after year, when they make a Super Bowl run, just have this kind of year from hell, right? But that's the silver lining I'm taking from this matchup, is that they didn't give up. The defense looks great. The run game looks back on track, at least for the time being. That could be enough this year.
NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more, and keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. and so can you.
The Cleveland Browns did the right thing by naming Shedeur Sanders the starting quarterback for the rest of the 2025 season.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
And we've talked a ton post-game on Sunday about Shedeur's performance against the Tennessee Titans, the sheer brilliance of it in certain areas, certainly some mistakes and some things that he has to clean up, and he alluded to that after the game. But to throw for 364 yards, 3 touchdowns, score 4 touchdowns total, you saw some real promise and some real development and some real poise there from the quarterback, who, by the way, threw an interception that almost cost your team, and he was able to basically erase it. When was the last time we felt like a Browns quarterback could erase a big mistake like that, pick up the slack for a bad defensive day, and give your offense and this team a chance to win? It's been a while, and he did all that and more on Sunday to prompt Kevin Stefanski on Monday to name him officially the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns for the remainder of the 2025 season. This is the outcome that always made the most sense. This is the outcome that I was hoping we would get, that we would get a chance to see Shedeur Sanders for the remainder of the season. He'd get his stretch of games to sort of see what he can do. Dylan got 5.5 games. Shedeur is at 3.5 games right now. So at least giving him as many as Dylan was always at the forefront of my mind. But now, barring injury, which obviously we hope nobody gets hurt, he will get a chance to finish out the season and make quite a statement about the state of the Browns quarterback room if he plays well. And honestly, there could be some jobs saved there as well. I want to get to those pieces here in a second. But I think first and foremost, what this means from just a quarterback room standpoint is there's no more of this, trying to put Dylan out there and see what he brings to the table as a rookie. They've got their sample size with him, and they feel like the offense is better functionally, and it is. It's noticeable on the tape when you're watching those games in real time how much better the offense is when Shedeur Sanders is operating it. And he's making throws, as I said in the post-game show on Sunday, that these other quarterbacks, Flacco, Dylan, when he was out there, simply were not making, or certainly were not able to make. And that's notable. So that's the first thing. But it also puts to bed the notion that Deshaun Watson is going to probably get a chance to play this season. Now, I know there's been some reports on that anyway. It sounds like he's going to be back in 2026 on the roster because of the financial implications of his deal. So that's just going to sort of be what it's going to be, I suppose. But in the grand scheme of things, it's good news on the front of you don't have to worry about Deshaun this year, the rest of the way. And there's none of this like trying to pigeonhole or finagle him in there to see, hey, can he play at the end of the season? Can we get his feet back underneath him? That's going to be a 2026 problem, essentially. Again, assuming he's going to be back, which has been reported, that's going to be a 2026 problem. We don't have to think about that. We don't have to have that conversation anymore, which for me is a breath of fresh air because I hate having that conversation. I know many fans like yourself are sort of sick of having that conversation as well and having to think about Deshaun Watson being part of this team and potentially playing again. But on the big picture part of this, the down the line part of this that's notable, as far as Shedeur Sanders is concerned, is that this is his chance to as I talked about last week, make the Browns put the Browns in a tough spot. Make the Browns have to think long and hard about what they're going to do at the quarterback position. Because I think even as recently as a couple weeks ago, the consensus still was they're going to draft a quarterback in this class. They're right now destined to be at the top of the draft board. The loss yesterday is going to help those efforts. Titans still, or actually I think the Raiders actually move up to the number 1 pick. The Titans are second because they still have 2 losses. And the Browns slot in as the 3rd pick as things stand right now, potentially. So they're still going to be in that top, as things stand right now, they're in the top 3. They're going to be at the top of that board. They're going to be in striking distance if they want to try to make a trade up to get a quarterback, where they maybe can, depending on how that falls. And if the Titans end up with the number 1 pick and they already have their quarterback in Cam Ward, how that all shakes out, we'll have to sort of see and see what that kind of looks like. But in the grand scheme of things, they're going to be in position to maybe draft a quarterback. That much is true. And Shedeur's job, as he now gets he now knows the stability of it all, that he will get the rest of the season to use as his resume, to use as his runway to showcase what he can do. His job is to make the Browns feel like, you know what, maybe we don't have to take a quarterback in 2026. Maybe we have our guy in the room and use those 2 first-round picks that they have instead to build up the roster around him, get him some weapons, get him some help on the offensive line. That's the goal. That is what he's trying to accomplish, and he's got a decent runway here to do that, because if he finishes out the season, he will have finished playing 7.5 games, and that's a decent sample size for a rookie quarterback. You would have liked more, and certainly there's conversations to be had about revisiting and rehashing whether or not they made the right call in starting Flacco and Dylan first before Shedeur, like all those different things. The revisionist history of that is going to be debated for years to come, I'm sure. But in the meantime, especially if Shedeur does end up being the franchise guy, but in the meantime, like, the focus for him is just make the most of these last 4 games and make the Browns give the Browns a very tough decision when it comes to whether or not they really need to draft a quarterback, or if they feel like they have somebody already in-house that they can build around. That's what he's trying to accomplish here. And I think he has got a really good shot at doing it. Kevin Stefanski spoke glowingly in his Monday Zoom press conference about the progress he's made from April to now, how hard he works, the footwork getting better, his pocket navigation when he used to drift getting so much better. Like, there is tangibly noticeable progress in what he's done on the field week over week. That was on full display against the Titans as well. Had a great game, became the first rookie quarterback this season to throw for 300 yards. Like, a lot to like. It's building blocks to continue building upon to get to the end of the season and prove that he is, as he said before his start with the Raiders, his first start, the guy that everyone's been waiting for. He's on the right trajectory to do it. He's got 4 more games to sort of prove it. And I'm glad that he now gets the clarity and understanding that, like, this is his runway the rest of the way to do that exact thing. Now, the other part of this is, I think right now, we're going to talk about this later in the show, there's a pretty good chance that everyone's getting fired. You lose that game yesterday, it feels like the end is kind of near for this group. There's a couple of other reasons why maybe they don't do that, and I'm going to talk about just kind of the wishy-washiness I have in this topic in general, because Jimmy Haslam's such a wild card. But I think in general, if Shedeur Sanders plays well down the stretch here, and maybe has people in that building starting to wonder if they actually have their franchise guy on the roster already, that could be a sort of Hail Mary last-ditch thing that saves people's jobs out in Berea. I mean, I'm just calling a spade here. Like, we all know GMs, coaches, they're all tied to the quarterbacks that they tie themselves to. Right now, they're tied to Deshaun Watson. But if they somehow find I don't even want to say a diamond in the rough, because I felt like Shedeur was going to be great, and he should have gone higher in the draft anyway, as many people did. But if they found their franchise quarterback at the bargain of a 5th-round pick somehow, some way, like, all of a sudden this rookie class it's already fantastic. It takes a whole nother it takes on a whole nother outlook when you all of a sudden realize, like, on top of all the other guys that Andrew Berry hit on, he also hit on his franchise quarterback. That would be something, and that might just be enough to save people's jobs at the end of the year. I don't know for sure, and Shedeur's obviously got to go out and do it first. And make that thought a difficult one, as I said, about what the future holds for the quarterback position here in Cleveland. But, man, if he does it, you could be talking about a regime that just is back on the notion that, hey, you might have identified the franchise guy. Let's keep building this thing with him. We don't want to change and mess up his trajectory and all those different things. It's an interesting thought. We're going to get back to the conversation on whether or not everybody's fired. But sticking with Shedeur for a second, I keep seeing some people trying to downplay the performance he gave on Sunday. And I think if you're doing that at this point, you're telling on yourself as just a hater.